Hey guys, so in this video we're going to add keys to our loot component, so we can then drop it from enemies or add it to our chests and also set up the custom ID. And first thing that we need to do is let's open components and loot component. In here let's create a new variable which will be key. This will be data table row handle. Let's create another one which will be KeyID. And this will be integer, compile and save. And let's also make it instance editable and then compile. And now on the enemies, when we click on a loot component, we can actually set up the key. So select the key, rusty key, and then key ID as well that we want. And for the functionality, we also need to add it when we generate loot. So here in this function, generate loot, in the end, we need to drag this back and we're going to get a key. First we're going to check, so break it open and then let's check if data table is valid, because we don't want to always have a key inside. So if we don't set anything in the data table, it won't be valid, it will be empty, and that way we'll just return this. But if it is valid, we need to get data table row, which will be key items data table, and then here we'll break it open. Actually, we don't need to break it open, we can just return, and we will return loot inventory, and we'll also add this as a pin, which will be key item info. So now in the loot component we're actually generating the key as well, which we are passing through, but we need to process it first in the, let's do enemy. So inside the enemy we actually need to send it to loot bag. So on the loot bag we need to expose the variable. So open the loot bag as well, items, where is loot bag? Loot bag, create new variable, and this will be key item info, and it will be type key item. Yes, let's make it instance editable and expose on spawn as well. Compile and save, go back to enemy, and now in here we can connect, refresh it, and connect key item info to key item info. And now we have it inside loot bag. We also need to pass it to loot container now. So inside the loot container, open that up as well. And in here, we're also going to create key item info, which will be key item with the capital, and compile and save. And now back in the loot bag. Now when we're creating the loot container, we are setting inventory. We're also going to move this back, and we're going to, from the return node, set key item info. So basically we're passing it from the loot component to enemy, and then from loot bag to loot container, and then connect it as well. Compile and save. Now we also want to pass it from the chest to loot container. So open items, chest, and after generate loot, we can set this. Actually, let's do inventory first and then this item. So promote to variable, and this will be key item info. We don't necessarily need it here, we could have just dragged this and pass it all the way when we're creating it here, but it's easier to have it as a variable. So Again, same as in the loot bag, drag this back, and from this return value, we'll set key item info inside the loot container and set it to this one. Right, now we do have it inside the loot container. So what we want to do is create one more loot icon if there is a key. So when we're building the inventory, we'll probably need a bit more space here. So I'm going to select all of this, shift and select this and move this down. And then here we're building inventory, we're building actual loot icons from the inventory. And on completed, we're going to get this key item info. First, we're going to check it if there is something inside. So break it open and do name empty, text is empty, and we'll do branch. And if text is empty, we don't do anything because that means it doesn't actually have any key. But if it's false, we're going to create loot icon widget. Loot icon widget. This one will be self reference. And instead of item info, we also need to set up inside the loot icon widget the key item info. So let's go to widgets, loot, not loot container, loot icon, where are you? Oh, that's key item. Blind. So loot icon, open it, and here let's create a variable which will be key item info. And this will be key item s. And now we have it everywhere where we actually need to pass it. So let's go to loot container. Now from the return value, we will set key item info. Set it to this one here. And after, do we need an index? Yeah, because we're setting like active index and stuff. So let's also set index. Now for the index, it's a problem because we're setting it from this array. So we're generating only as many indexes as there is items in the inventory. So the way we're going to get this last index that we need to set for this icon is we're going to get an inventory and get length. And that will be the loot index for this last thing, last key. Because if there is 2 items in the inventory, this will run with 0 and 1. And for this one, it will be array index 2. So it will be the next one in. And once we have set this, we also need to set loot icon. This one, copy it from this return value, which will actually set that loot icon, and then add child to this vertical box that is the same. Maybe I could have connected it. It's fine. Leave it as it is. Content, add child. Alright, so now basically it will create loot icons with all the items in the inventory, and then it will create another one with the key inside. So connect this one to target as well. Now we're not setting it the correct way, because when we're setting the icon, loot icon, there is this get tooltip widget. This is actually fine because we're checking if the item info is valid, and if it is, we're creating tooltip widget. But for the keys, the item info won't be valid because we haven't set it, so it doesn't have any class, so it won't create tooltip widget. That is fine. And in event graph, when we're setting the loot icon, we want to move this back and then we do branch, and again we can check if the class is valid. So is valid class, and if it is, that means the item info is set. But if it isn't, that means the key is set. We created a loot icon with the key because we're not creating any empty icons. It always has something. So if it doesn't have the item info, it has the key. So we will set icon on false. Again, move this down. And the icon will make brush, make slide brush, get key item info, break it open, and we do have icon that we connect to image. Go back here, compile, and then what else we need to set? Item icon, item name, so we get that one as well. We can just connect the name directly. And then item type we don't have to set because key doesn't have item type, or rarity we also don't need to set. So this is pretty much it, but we also need to hide it because it's visible at the moment. So let's copy this type and rarity, and for both set visibility to hidden, set visibility to hidden. Compile and save. That's loot icon done. We can even close this. In the loot container, it's going to be a little bit more difficult now, because here when we're picking up the item, it's going to pick up function. We can't pick up the keys the same way because we have separate function for it. It's not the same struct, so we need to drag this back. Let's do branch. Hold control and connect all of this here, and we're going to set up, we need to check, I need more space again, so move this down, and here we need to check if this active index is greater than inventory, the inventory length, this time -1, because we're trying to get an index, so subtract 1. And the active index is the index that we have set for the loot icon that we are picking up. So if this active index is, let's say 3, and there is only 2 items in the inventory, that means we are trying to pick key, which is on the index number 3, so it's greater than the number of items in the inventory. So we connect to branch check, and let's do not boolean, so then we can just continue with the function here on true. So if it's not greater, it's true, we pick up item. If it is, then we get the player reference and do pick up key item. Connect it to false. After that, we can also create notify, which will be pick up, it is pick up. We get a key, connect it here to pick up, break it open, name goes, we need to convert it, so text to string, and then connect it, and stack, I don't think we need to change it, but to 1. That is for notify. Then we don't need to remove index from the inventory, but we need to set this key item info to empty one because we have just picked it up. And then we will remove child. Actually, this can be connected here now. And we will remove the child from the vertical box, which is one of the loot icons. Set the active index, and then we go to this branch. Here we are checking if the inventory length equals 0, and if it is, we destroy the loot bag or change an inventory in the chest. But we also might have a key and it's not calculated in the inventory, so instead we're going to get this vertical box and we're going to check has children, has any children, and we'll do not boolean again, so it doesn't have any children. That means there are no loot icons, and we're going to, so doesn't have any children, true. We will update the chest, but we will destroy the loot bag. And if it's not, so that means there is still some items, we're just updating the inventory. Now when we're updating the inventory, we also need to update the key item info. So double click on it, it will open up the interface, and here on update inventory, we will add plus icon and do item key item info. Key item info, which will be key item S. Compile and save. Can close this. And now we will pass it key item info. So it might be empty if we picked it up, so it will set it to empty inside the either loot bag or chest. And then here also we update it. Right, that's for take one item. That should work. Now let's set it up for take all items. Here, what we need to do here, take all items on completed. We need to, alright, after we pick up the whole inventory, so we do for loop for inventory, we might need to pick up key as well. So let's get a key, break it open, let's check if it's not empty, so empty on name, and if it is empty, then we continue with this, but if it's not, we need to pick it up, so get this key, get the player reference, and pick up key item on false. And after that we need to create notify that we picked it up as well, so copy this copy this notify from here, paste it. Again, I need to break this open and convert the name to, so text to string. We could have changed it in the actual struct to name, but then there's quite a lot of things that we would have to change by now, so this is easier. So connect it like that, we create notify, and then we just go back to this part. Wait, do we go back to this part? Class. This does, what is it doing? So if we picked it up, it updates the chest. If it's chest, it updates the chest. If it's loot bag, it destroys the loot bag. Yeah, that's correct. Compile and save. That's for take all. On close, we don't have to change anything. Now, one more thing, actually, we need to set up key on the chest. So go to loot component, key, rusty key, and key ID will be, I don't know, 10 or 1. And go to game. I need this key to open it, so unlock it. And now we do have a key here. Obviously there is no tooltip setup. If I click on it, it looted rusty key. and rest of it seems to be fine. Did I set up any key here somewhere? No. So let's try one more time with the key this time, also with the keyboard key. So if I hover over this one and select E on a keyboard, it picks it up, and these one are picked up as well. So this seems to be working. Let's check on the enemy. So loot component, go to key, rusty key, and KeyID will be 2. And rusty key. Again, I'll try to pick up gold, try to pick up key, it works fine. On this one, I'll try take all, so R, it picks up all the keys. And now run to these doors. I think one of them should have the correct ID already. I do have 3 keys. This one here, because I set one of them to be ID 1, which was my first door. So that seems to be looting correctly. And there is just one thing that we haven't set on the chest now. So on the chest, when we update the inventory, we also need to here update the key item info and do end boolean here, end boolean, because here we're checking if it's empty, then we're setting to empty. But if there was a key, I'll actually show you. Disconnect it, go to chest again, I'll pick up these 2 things, and it already says empty because there is nothing in the inventory. This is just a key as an extra variable, and if you closed it, you wouldn't be able to get into chest. So we need to also make end boolean. So if chest inventory doesn't have anything inside, and key, should we do is empty? Probably, yeah, that's the best way. So break it open. Again, I don't have space anywhere. Move this and do empty. Text is empty. Then that means the chest is empty. And also when we're reopening it, we probably can copy this part, because we do have exception that if it's empty, then we don't open it. That's on the interact. Here, this branch. So I'm going to paste it here. And this time, if chest length is greater than 1, and this is this should be probably or. Chest is 1, and then or boolean text is not empty, because only one of these needs to be true for us to be able to open the chest. So if the inventory got some items, or key item, I didn't connect, key item is not empty, not boolean, then we can open the chest. And then for the loot bag, do we have to change anything on update? No, we don't do anything because we destroy it. So that's pretty much it. Now I can loot this completely fine, and it's working. Let's see if we leave it here. Okay, the widget doesn't get destroyed, but once we take a key, it gets destroyed. Now we have it in the inventory, all 3 keys. Perfect, and that is it. This is how we set it up. So now basically we do have this system on the loot component. We can add loot component to anything, add the rusty key and the key ID. You can set up your custom key that you want to drop from the enemies as well. If you want to drop specific key from the boss that unlocks, I don't know, any door, on the door you would just set up the ID that it needs. And the reason why we have it for quest items as well, because now we can create any quest items that we will need to interact with some sort of object. So let's say you have some sort of portal, and I don't know, you need the orb to access the portal. So we will just set up on the portal that it will be locked unless we have this item with the ID of I don't know what, which will be orb. And if we have it, then on the portal itself we will make some custom event that will handle what we need to do after. So all the quest items can be now handled through this ID. And yeah, so I'll see you in the next video. Bye.